Tonight, scientists warn this will be the hottest month ever recorded on the planet.
It is terrifying. Global boiling has arrived.
Blistering heat, records shattered, and urgent appeal in the face of soaring temperatures. A helicopter swoops in to make a dramatic rescue after hikers come face to face with wildfire.
We ran out waving our arms and hiking poles at them, and they circled down and landed.
And as stores ramp up security, shoppers speak out.
Incredibly embarrassing. I got people walking in all of a sudden staring at me like I've stolen something.
From carts that lock to gates that stop you from leaving. Does it go too far?
This is The National with Juanita Taylor.
Adrian is away. Well, alarm bells are ringing loudly tonight. The United Nations warning we've entered an era of global boiling. Climate scientists say July is on track to be the hottest month ever recorded. From Canada and the U.S. to the Mediterranean and China, communities are baking in dangerous heat. People are dying in it. And experts warn if humans don't jump into action, things will just get worse. Well, July has been so hot so far, scientists say it's in record-breaking territory. Those at a German university say it will smash the old global temperature record set in 2019 by more than 0.2 degrees Celsius. Well, 16 or 17 degrees may not seem hot, but keep in mind that includes the southern hemisphere's winter temperatures. Renee Filipponi takes us through the warnings and what scientists say needs to happen.
Heat and humidity turned Toronto into an oven, making it feel like nearly 40 degrees Celsius, leaving everyone trying to stay cool.
I feel very lucky that I have AC in my apartment, but I know that's not the case for everyone.
Bringing a water bottle with you is good. Wearing hats, sunscreen.
Global temperature records have been breaking all summer. That heat feeding wildfires that have been destroying communities across Europe. Now, new analysis shows July is on track to be the hottest month in recorded history.
We can already say with absolute certainty that it is going to be the warmest July.
The UN Secretary General points to climate change and says it's terrifying.
The era of global warming has ended. The era of global boiling has arrived. The air is unbreathable. The heat is unbearable.
In the U.S., where 150 million people are under heat alerts, New York has declared a state of emergency.
Heat kills more New Yorkers every year than any other kind of extreme weather event.
In Arizona, the extreme heat is being blamed for dozens of deaths. The U.S. president introduced new safety measures for workers.
Experts say extreme heat is already costing America $100 billion a year and hits our most vulnerable the hardest.
Climate scientists say this will be the norm unless people move to drastically cut fossil fuels.
We have to mitigate climate, which means we have to reduce our emissions. It's the #1 best thing we can do.
Along with the heat, this summer in Canada has been marked with unprecedented wildfires, cities drowning in smoke, and now severe drought is a reality in BC.
The level of drought that we're seeing here in British Columbia today is really quite unprecedented.
And Renee, unprecedented really is a word to describe what is going on right now.
And there is another factor at play here, Juanita. Scientists predicted this would be a hotter year than usual, and that's because of El Nino. It's a cyclical warming of the Pacific Ocean that could raise global temperatures. It's back after 3 years and is expected to impact the weather until at least early next year.
Thanks for this tonight, Renee. Well, that unprecedented wildfire season Renee mentioned is still going strong, with flames sparking throughout the country almost every day. Right now, there are about 1,000 wildfires burning across Canada. More than 600 are out of control, many in British Columbia. And tonight, we're going to focus in on one of those fires in BC, this one in Horse Thief Creek. Not only is it out of control, officials say it poses a significant threat to public safety. 3 people can attest to that threat. They were hiking in the area when they noticed smoke. And as Balpuri shows us, that's when their day took a dramatic turn.
The morning hike up Mount Bruce in BC's interior was ideal. The afternoon trek down was harrowing.
There was a tiny plume of smoke, and at first we were like, is that a dust storm or is that smoke? So one of the guys I was with ran up over that little hill and he was like, it's a fire.
The trail off the mountain was suddenly out of reach.
Within 10 minutes, it was like a huge mushroom of smoke and we could see flames. At first I was just like, this isn't real. There's no way this is happening right now.
Winds fanned the flames closer and closer, so Sage called for help.
While I was on the phone with 911, a helicopter showed up. So I thought it was search and rescue, but it was actually a local tour company.
The crew was contracted by the province to watch for wildfires during this unprecedented season.
We just spotted the fire, so we went straight to the parking lot, noticed that there was one vehicle there. So just followed the trail up to the top where we found 3 of them. We ran out waving our arms and hiking poles at them, and they circled down and landed. We got in there and he said, let's get the hell out of here, and we flew away.
The hikers asked to be dropped in the parking lot to retrieve their vehicle.
We ran into the car and just drove super fast down this bumpy logging road. And they flew over us until they knew we were in the clear.
There was no time for thank yous.
I messaged them on Instagram and asked them when I can come by and bring them some beers and chocolate, because we definitely owe them that and more. Thank you so much. I don't know what we would have done without you. You're definitely lifesavers.
It worked out all really well this time, but yeah, people need to be careful in the backcountry right now, because it's so dry out, the fires can travel so fast.
By the time the friends were safe, the trail they had just hiked was already on fire. Balpuri, CBC News, Vancouver.
We are learning the names tonight of 2 of the people killed in last week's flash floods in Nova Scotia. 6-year-old Natalie Hazel Harnish is being remembered as a fearless, joyful little girl. Her obituary says she'll be buried alongside her dog Molly, who also died in the flood. And 52-year-old musician Nick Holland is being remembered for his passion for music. He's being mourned by his partner and 2 children. 2 more people were swept away by the water. The body of another child has been recovered. A youth remains missing. Montreal police are investigating a double homicide after a woman and her 12-year-old daughter were found dead.
Family members were worried for the victims, so they were reported missing a bit after midnight.
Police were investigating that missing persons report when they found the bodies in a home early this morning. Their family car was discovered about 2 kilometers away. Police are still searching for a 3rd missing person, as well as any potential witnesses. New numbers out tonight show homicides are on the rise across Canada, part of a bigger trend that shows violent crime soared last year. Terry Reith now with some possible reasons why.
It's happening all too frequently. Violent robberies up 15%. Homicides up 8%. Part of a nationwide crime trend that made 2022 the worst year for violence since 2007, according to Statistics Canada.
The national increase in homicides this year was largely driven by increases in British Columbia, which saw an increase of 30 homicides, Manitoba, which saw an increase of 26 homicides, and Quebec, which saw an increase of 20 homicides.
Gang violence accounted for a quarter of Canadian murders, most of those committed with handguns. Spousal violence also on the rise, with women 11 times more likely to be killed than men. The issue of crime making its way onto the national agenda.
It is not right that in far too many of our cities we're seeing an uptick in violent crime. And there's all sorts of different factors that go into that.
Trudeau cites mental health as a key issue. Add to that a sluggish economy, unemployment and homelessness, says this criminologist.
These are not, strictly speaking, exclusive policing problems. They are issues that are far wider
Many violent crimes, he says, are the result of people who are desperate, those who can't find legitimate jobs, who survive on the underground economy.
We must begin to pay more attention to social welfare services. Those are inadequate as we speak.
While some may see the figures as worrisome, in many cases they're just returning to pre-pandemic levels. Overall, the criminologist says Canada remains one of the safest places in the world. Terry Reith, CBC News, Edmonton.
On the day Donald Trump's lawyers met with prosecutors over the January 6th investigation, an evening curveball. The former U.S. president hit with 3 new criminal charges related to his handling of classified documents. Katie Simpson is following the story in Washington. Katie, walk us through it.
Donald Trump is now accused of trying to destroy or conceal evidence, all related to the storage of classified documents, allegedly insisting that security camera footage be deleted. Trump is facing added charges, and a new defendant has been named in the case, all of it detailed in new court documents. Inside Donald Trump's private Florida golf club, it is now alleged the former president instructed maintenance manager Carlos de Oliveira to get rid of security footage that would have revealed more about boxes of classified documents, where they were moved, when, and who did it. Newly released court documents state that de Oliveira told a coworker the boss wanted the server deleted. "What are we going to do?" he allegedly said. Trump is now facing 2 additional obstruction charges for attempting to alter, destroy, or conceal evidence, and a 3rd new charge over the willful retention of a classified document. The Republican presidential frontrunner says this is a continued flailing attempt by the Biden administration to harass him, an argument he's been making since charges were laid.
We have prosecutors that are evil people. These are evil people, deranged. I call them deranged.
His longtime Mar-a-Lago staffer has now been added as a defendant in this case, which is set for trial next May.
And Katie, what about that other investigation Trump's lawyers heard about today?
Yeah, the January 6th investigation. Trump is preparing for a possible 3rd indictment. Those charges would be related to the Capitol attack and broader efforts to overturn the 2020 election. If that pushes ahead, Trump could face a scenario where he's facing 3 separate criminal trials, all in the same year, all in an election year where he's the leading Republican candidate for president. A remarkable situation, far beyond the bounds anything the U.S. has ever witnessed before.
Thank you, Katie.
Thanks.
It remains unclear tonight who is in control in Niger. The president's whereabouts are unknown after soldiers declared a coup late last night. Peter Armstrong now with the chaos and the calls for his release.
In Niger's capital, supporters of the military coup attacked the governing party's headquarters. Yesterday, hundreds of people supporting deposed President Mohamed Bazoum were dispersed by gunfire. Presidential guards announced they're putting an end to the current regime. And that has clearly divided this country. We are here to defend democracy, says this demonstrator at a pro-president rally. We have always believed in the army, says this man supporting the coup. This is just the latest in a series of coups in this region. Militaries seized power in Mali in 2020 and last year in Burkina Faso. Leaders in both countries have moved closer to Russia and away from the West. Experts say this week's coup presents a new opportunity for Russia to flex its regional muscles.
If the coup holds, if the putschists manage to survive, that might create this opening for Russia to try and strengthen its cooperation.
That is just part of what concerns the international community.
I am indeed extremely worried.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres points to a regional destabilization, not just in Mali and Burkina Faso, but Chad, Sudan, and now possibly Niger.
We are witnessing that the whole belt south of the Sahara is becoming an extremely problematic area with terrible consequences.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken spoke with Bazoum, a long-standing Western ally, Thursday morning.
We call for his immediate release. We condemn any effort to seize power by force.
The whereabouts of the president remain unknown, but it appears he's not going quietly. Via Twitter, Bazoum told his supporters their hard-won achievements will be safeguarded. For now, though, nothing here is safeguarded, and the next few days will prove pivotal for the country and indeed the entire region. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, London.
The White House says it has not seen any evidence of Russian involvement in the Niger coup, and Washington officials say in Ukraine, Russia is facing a growing challenge. As Sasha Petrusik explains, Kyiv has stepped up its counteroffensive.
Ukrainian soldiers advance one risky step at a time into territory held and mined by Russia. Even abandoned Russian trenches aren't safe, says a Ukrainian drone pilot who saw comrades killed by booby traps.
When the soldiers get the trenches, the mines is blowing and kill our friends.
Ukraine's counteroffensive has been slower than expected due to the mines and multiple lines of Russian defenses. Grueling firefights, too, which have badly damaged donated armored vehicles, though President Volodymyr Zelensky says more are coming. In fact, it seems the counteroffensive is picking up steam, advancing in 3 big pushes into Russian-held territory: Luhansk in the east, toward the Sea of Azov in the south. Capturing the key city of Melitopol would split Russian forces and make it harder for Moscow to reinforce and resupply. Russia continues to attack the southern port of Odessa, where it's blocked Ukraine's grain exports to countries that depend on it. But that offensive has put Russian President Vladimir Putin on the defensive. Meeting with African leaders in St. Petersburg, he was pressed to relent. We need to find a resolution to this crisis, says the head of the African Union, to prevent hunger due to rising grain prices and shortages. In response, Putin's promised some free shipments of Russian grain. The UN says that won't be enough.
So it's not with a handful of donations to some countries that we correct this dramatic impact that affects everybody, everywhere.
The UN wants Russia to unblock Ukrainian ports, as Ukraine backs up its own demands on Russia to end its invasion and the war with more force. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Toronto.
Back here in Canada, a prestigious military college is being criticized for serving unsafe food in a rodent-infested kitchen.
We often just get food that is uncooked. I mean, it's gross.
A CBC News investigation reveals the hazardous conditions in the cafeteria. Shoppers are speaking out against new tactics to stop thieves.
How did that feel?
Incredibly embarrassing.
Toronto police pay tribute to a canine colleague. We're back in 2. A Toronto police dog killed in the line of duty was honored today with a procession. Dozens of officers took part, along with the dog's handler and other members of the canine unit. Police say the 2-year-old German Shepherd called Bingo was shot and killed Tuesday during the pursuit of a murder suspect. Grocery chains like Loblaw and Walmart are cracking down on shoplifting, but some of their tactics have shoppers up in arms. Sophia Harris now on the retail theft problem and the customer backlash.
Mark Berry says a recent trip to this grocery store, owned by Loblaw, was humiliating. He says just before leaving the store, the wheels on his shopping cart suddenly locked.
And the alarm started blaring all at the same time.
How did that feel?
incredibly embarrassing. I got people walking in all of a sudden staring at me like I've stolen something.
Barry says he had to show his receipt to prove his innocence and get the wheels unlocked. It left a lasting impression.
I don't want to come back to the store anymore.
The Retail Council of Canada says retail theft, including organized crime, is on the rise, so stores are beefing up security. However, some anti-theft tactics are sparking customer backlash. Retailers like Loblaw and Walmart have installed more metal gates with entry and exit points.
It was just belligerent.
Diane Ray says when she tried to leave Walmart on her mobility scooter, she was stopped by an employee at the gate.
It meant I wasn't going anywhere, right?
Ray says the employee demanded to see her receipt and peppered her with questions before letting her go.
I felt humiliated, angry. I was angry, and I felt like I was being treated unfairly, unjustly.
That's something that you could make a claim on.
This lawyer says retailers can't stop you from leaving a store unless they catch you stealing.
If you're blocked from leaving and you haven't done anything wrong, that indicates that they've engaged in potential false imprisonment, and that opens them up to a lawsuit.
Walmart told CBC News it wants customers to feel accepted and safe and is looking into Ray's case. Loblaw says its security measures are a work in progress and it welcomes customer feedback.
And it locks up, by itself.
Barry says he did give Loblaw his feedback on social media, but never heard back. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Waterloo, Ontario.
Documents obtained by CBC News show that the next generation of Canadian officers have faced tough conditions at Kingston's Royal Military College. As Dan Takama reveals, it starts with moldy, undercooked food, and it gets worse.
The cadet dining hall serves up more than 3,000 meals to hungry students at the Royal Military College every day. But last summer, it was shut down for 6 weeks. The reason? Rats.
It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. We didn't enjoy that whatsoever.
This chef and union official says staff saw rodents running around in the middle of the day.
We were very disturbed by that. I think quite a few people couldn't fathom it.
CBC News obtained internal emails describing the infestation and how cleanup crews found a rat in its death throes, along with feces and urine throughout the kitchen. RMC says the rodent infestation is over, and a pest control company now makes weekly visits to ensure they don't return. But other problems persist. There have long been complaints about food quality.
A student says issues with the food continued this past year, describing what they saw at mealtimes and the way it impacts cadets. CBC has agreed not to identify the student who fears speaking out could affect their academic and military career.
I've seen mold on bread a lot. I've seen a lot of insects. We often just get food that is uncooked. I mean, it's gross.
RMC says it hears the complaints and takes action, like the time worms were found in the broccoli.
We are a kitchen and these sorts of things will happen. However, we have a very good quality control program. We're trying our very best to do better.
Students are hoping they do better. Current cadets pay around $600 a month for the meal plan and can't opt out. Dan Takama, CBC News, Kingston.
Canada's allies have stepped in to help battle historic wildfires, including a group from South Korea. We see firsthand the work of foreign firefighters.
The right thing to do to be here as a friend.
And why some Canadians are ditching their air conditioners in the middle of a scorching summer.
I think we're going to see less and less gas meters on people's homes.
The National takes you deeper into the stories shaping your world next. Well, as much of the country continues to grapple with this historic wildfire season, it has been all hands on deck, and many of those hands have come from outside of Canada. This year alone, more than 3,100 foreign firefighters have been deployed across the country. For context, last year that number was 0. A team from South Korea is among those on the front line in Quebec. And Jennifer Yoon got exclusive access to their operation as they put themselves at risk to keep Canadians safe.
The firefighters here are serious folks, a hand-picked team that includes former spies, Navy SEALs, and Army Special Forces. But that doesn't mean they don't know how to have fun, even as they head off to fight fires. You may think this would be somewhere in South Korea, but it's actually remote, rural Quebec.
We were driving for around 6 hours yesterday to get from Montreal to Val d'Or. It's the crack of dawn, and we're driving around 2 more hours to get to Le Bel-sur-Quévillon.
When we got there, firefighters were preparing for another grueling day out on the field, talking to loved ones back home and getting lunches together. It's not food they're accustomed to, but this veteran had a secret weapon in his pocket, canned kimchi.
So he's hiding it inside his pocket because it's a valuable item.
He took us to the team's stash.
가끔 먹고 싶을 때
Instant rice, ramen cup noodles, and sweet snacks sent up by the Korean community in Montreal. After they get all loaded up, the firefighters head to the morning briefing at a community center.
Some heat that we identified a few days ago
where Americans, Canadians, and South Koreans, old war allies on the other side of the Pacific, are once again drawing up battle plans.
You guys fly drones, the drones in the rain? If it's raining.
비 오는데 드론 날릴 수 있습니까?
It's a rainy day in Le Bel-sur-Quévillon, but not too far from the town, which was evacuated twice already this summer. There are still hot spots that need to be extinguished. Today, they'll be digging up roots that are still smoldering underground.
It's had its challenges, but to be completely honest, the people have been great, and we've had a lot of interpreters.
It's an approach to firefighting the Koreans aren't used to, and it's taken them a while to understand.
교육을 받을 때 저희는 한 번에 갈 때 몇 킬로씩 이렇게 산불 끄면서 이렇게 가는데 하루에 600m만 갈 수 있다고 하는 거예요. 그래서 저희 다 안 믿었는데 진짜 여기 와봐서 꺼보니까 진짜 그 뿌리 속으로 이게 타고 가니까 한국이랑은 전혀 다릅니다.
Kim Dae-hyun is getting married next month. He says his fiancée worries about him fighting fires so far away. But he also worries about his loved ones back home, as heavy torrential rains claim dozens of lives.
아시다시피 지금 되게 안 좋아서 그 점에서 저도 사실 가서 돕고 싶기도 한데 지금 여기 돕는 것도 되게 중요한 일이니까.
Kind of a global warming, that makes the global issues. So we have to take care of anywhere, any place. That's our mission.
This veteran firefighter says he would come back to Canada if the need should arise again.
In my mind, it's the same forest. We should keep the forest. That means it's promised for the future or promised for the globe.
It's likely we'll need their help again. These fires are only expected to get worse, according to scientists. Over 3,000 foreign firefighters from a dozen countries around the world have arrived in Canada to help this wildfire season. Even more will certainly come before the summer's finished, says the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre. Last year, there were none.
The right thing to do to be here as a friend. That's what friends are meant for.
It's the first time the South Koreans have sent a team, and the man leading it says it's about giving back to Canada.
We remember Canada sent 26,000 troops to Korea during the Korean War to defend the freedom and democracy of Korea. And you paid a heavy price. And we Koreans never forget your sacrifice.
The Canadian government says it's working to bolster domestic firefighting capacities. A spokesperson for the Minister for Emergency Preparedness said Canada is hiring over 300 Indigenous firefighters and buying more specialized firefighting equipment. But the government says it does recognize all the help it's getting from other countries. Locals in this small town are also feeling thankful, like a neighborhood kid who wrote this letter thanking firefighters.
Thank you for everything. You work very hard for us.
Some new friendships also are being forged, like with this Quebecois bus driver who's been taking the Koreans up to the fire every day in her yellow school bus. She's even learning a few Korean phrases here and there, or at least she's trying.
안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
It's all made her want to visit her new friends in Korea one day. Until then, she'll be sticking with them, driving them up to the fire line as long as they're fighting fires here.
So Jennifer, Canada's getting a lot of help this year, but this is a two-way street.
That's right. The idea is that when our allies need us, we help them out, and vice versa. And the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre, or CBC, works out the logistics. Now, there's been some movement this summer to streamline that process of coordinating aid. In June, the U.S. and Canada signed an agreement to improve cross-border cooperation. CBC also has arrangements with Australia, Mexico, New Zealand, and South Africa. All of those countries have sent teams our way this season. The framework does rely, however, on wildfires being staggered around the world. The Koreans, for example, told me that their wildfire season hits closer to the spring, and that's why they're able to come and help out here. They also told me that they're hoping Canadians will come to their aid too if the need arises.
Right, thank you so much, Jennifer. A new video tonight from BC officials shows how easy it is to set a fire unintentionally. In this case, a man puts out a cigarette under the hedges in a yard he's working on, but that butt was still smoldering. And about 7 hours later, a flame sparked, then spread rapidly. While the residents did notice and called 911, the video is being used to highlight the risks of discarding cigarettes around vegetation. Well, a cigarette, the cause of that fire, but heat and dry conditions helped fuel it. This summer of extreme temperatures is also powering a trend among Canadians. People turning off the AC for an alternative, promising lower emissions and energy bills. Kyle Bax shows us what it is.
A hope to alter this home's heating and cooling, with the possible environmental benefit and long-term savings as the main selling points.
We're spending a lot of money on heating and cooling, and so hopefully this will help.
Heat pump sales are sizzling this summer. Record temperatures, government rebates, and improved technology are among the reasons why. Last year, heat pumps were just 10% of this company's sales. This summer, it's 50%.
I always knew it would happen. I just didn't know it would happen this quickly.
Peter Messenger says he believes heat pumps could wipe out air conditioner sales in a few years and reduce the need for furnaces.
As time goes on, I think we're going to see less and less gas meters on people's homes.
But there is a cost, often ranging from $6,000 to $14,000. The federal government rebate of $5,000 helps lower the price. Some provincial and utility rebates can help too. Those subsidies are still needed, experts say, for at least a few more years.
If they're going to get a more efficient system for the same or cheaper, that's a win-win.
Experts suggest heat pumps can help cut emissions, especially for those switching away from heating oil, although they could add more demand on the electricity grid.
There's a significant amount of infrastructure that has to change over to get to this net zero target. And so every time you make that choice and install a heat pump, that's kind of one step in that direction.
Still, installing a heat pump in a larger building can be more complex, depending on the current system in place. And in some colder regions, furnaces are still needed as a backup for those extra frigid winter days.
There is still those lower temperatures where the gas furnace is required, just due to part of electrical costs, right? So we still find it beneficial.
Here, that's not the case. It's only a heat pump now. Gone are the AC and furnace. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Mississauga, Ontario.
Now, we know the temperature under extreme condition can change quickly. So if you want to know what's happening in your community, you can head to the CBC News Climate Dashboard. It has up-to-date information on all things climate related. That's at cbc.ca/climate. Canadians are also grappling with another major issue, a doctor shortage.
We know that fewer medical students are choosing family medicine.
But what's it like for doctors on the job? We follow one to find out next. Well, Canada's critical shortage of family doctors is forcing governments to take a hard look at why. The burnout rate is growing and fewer graduates are choosing family medicine. Earlier in the season, Christine Birak showed us how that all-important job can wear people out and how one community is trying to fix that.
Why is it so hard to see a family doctor?
I would start by saying I think we're facing a crisis in family medicine. I know we have solutions. We know what to do. We just have to go ahead and do it.
But normally, do you take it once a day? No. When I go home, I'm never done. My day is never done. I don't think that patients understand the full picture of what we do behind the scenes.
Which is why we're making an early morning house call.
Good morning. How's it going, Laura?
Good, you?
I don't think we're waking you, are we?
No.
We wanted to see why family doctors are disappearing and what can be done about it.
We don't want to disturb you, just fly on the wall, but we're hoping to just follow you through your day.
All right.
Laura Sang's a new family doctor in Saint-Hippolyte, Quebec, north of Montreal. At 6:30, she's already working.
I have 12 documents, 2 results, and 4 messages.
And that's just overnight.
And I'm just going through this person's chart, which is quite lengthy. That was especially the appeal for me of family medicine, was that you get to follow, people over time for the rest of their lives. Sometimes, you're giving wonderful news, sometimes, it's not good news, but either way, you're kind of that constant.
On top of that, family doctors are essentially entrepreneurs. You heard that right. Doctors run small businesses. Many are only paid when they're with a patient. On average, it's about $40 per appointment or visit.
That entails kind of when the person comes into my office, kind of keeping track of how long they were there, what sorts of things I did for them, what health conditions and underlying things they have, because that does affect sort of how you're allowed to bill.
Which means her workday hasn't actually started yet. While medical school prepared Sang to be a doctor, no one said much about renting office space, buying medical equipment, computer systems, along with hiring and paying staff. In the office, it's back to back to back patients, with medical issues ranging from lack of sleep and mental health challenges to infections and cancer.
What I didn't expect was sort of all the other hats that I wear as a family doctor. I find myself sometimes being in the role more of psychologist because patients can't afford them, and sometimes it's been sort of pharmacist trying to do like a review of all their medications. I'm sort of the secretary in figuring out, okay, which appointments that I've requested have been done, which specialists have they seen, what are they still missing, what kinds of tests do they still need to have.
Dr. Sang is now several hours and several patients into her day, but it is lunchtime, but it looks like you're also still working?
Yes, I have so many things to get done, so I usually just take a bite, keep typing back and forth, and that's usually what my lunch hour looks like.
And her day is far from over.
A lot of people don't really know the reality, and sometimes, the reason that we don't have availability, it's like someone left the tap running, and depending on the week, it's all running all the way, or it's more of a slow trickle.
But overflowing.
But it's never off. There is no off.
The Canadian Medical Association says burnout among family physicians has gone from 33% in 2017 to 57% in 2021, and it's getting worse. Surveys already show that 1 in 5 Canadians do not have a family doctor, but there are solutions. So where are we headed?
So we're heading to Cambridge Delta Clinic, which has just hired a brand new physician who will be taking on new patients.
Donna Gravel works for the city of Cambridge, Ontario, which has had a shortage of family doctors for years. She's a medical recruiter who knows what it takes to attract family doctors.
We're hearing from family doctors saying they're under this incredible amount of pressure. They're running their own business with a ton of administration and overhead and trying to see patients, and it's a lot to manage. How has Cambridge dealt with some of those pressures?
Well, I think because we've formed FOEs, which are family health organizations, and we also have 2 family health teams.
Instead of one doctor opening an office, several doctors work together and share overhead and expenses. They also work closely with a team of other professionals: pharmacists, social workers, nurses, dietitians, psychologists, and others, offering direct access to care. And the more doctors there are in the group, the easier it is for each of them.
If you are off for a week, you're sharing your after hours, and that really eases the pressures that they're not looking after their own patients 24 hours a day. So if they're in a group of 4, they would be on call for their patients every 4 nights. Well, now we have 40 in the group, so it's 1 in 40.
But these doctors also do need to make money. And what's the model here?
And so they get a stipend per year per patients that they have, and then they also bill for the services that they do when the patients come to see them.
It's called capitation. Doctors like Laura Sang in Quebec get paid for every visit or a fee for service. But most family doctors in Cambridge get paid a set amount based on the number of patients they have. They get a higher amount for older patients, and they can still bill for other services.
Gravel drops off flowers for a new doctor she's recruited and leaves us with another doc she brought to Cambridge years ago. Mekalai Kumanen is the new president of the Ontario College of Family Physicians.
We know that fewer medical students are choosing family medicine as a specialty. I think we know that primary care has chronically been underfunded.
She says burnout, fewer family medicine grads, and an aging population are creating the perfect storm. And governments can easily embrace models like the ones being used in Cambridge.
Ultimately, it's really recognizing how important we are as a sector, how important we are as a foundation to our healthcare system, and how we can build funding in to support that sector.
In Quebec, Dr. Sang clocks out after 6 p.m., but her day isn't over. She hopes working in teams and better payment options will become the norm, but adds her patients are always her focus.
Just seeing how appreciative my patients are and keeps me motivated to keep doing the job that I do and being there for them, because that's ultimately why I'm here, is to help people.
There are cures for this crisis. Now, provincial governments must decide on a treatment plan before more doctors leave family medicine.
Christine Burak showed us how one Ontario city hired a medical recruiter. This week, Manitoba announced it has hired a recruiting company. Its mission is to bring in 150 new physicians. There are incentives for taking a job in rural areas and the province's north. Next, we'll show you a real cliffhanger.
He just threw on his harness. He had to climb. They had to do something.
A race to the top to save a helpless creature. In our moment.
McIntosh, gold in 2:04.06, another World Junior record.
And a new Canadian record. Summer McIntosh successfully defended her 200-meter butterfly title at the World Aquatics Championship. The 16-year-old joins Kylie Maas as the only Canadians to repeat as world champion.
200 fly is all about being fearless. It's probably one of the toughest events there is, but at the same time, if you manage the first half well, then you know that you'll be strong in the second half. You just got to trust your training, and I think I accomplished that tonight.
It's the second medal at the meet for McIntosh, and she could add another. She swims her final individual event on Saturday. Well, here's another triumphant moment. A poor bird was rescued after becoming trapped in a Toronto rock climbing gym. It was slamming so hard against the window in a bid to escape, it injured itself in the process. Well, luckily, a group of climbers, including staff at the Toronto Wildlife Centre, raced to save the distressed animal. It was all caught on tape and put online only this week. The rock climbing rescue is our moment.
So we showed up at the gym and I'm climbing a route and they're pointing and there's this poor killdeer flying over and over again into the window, just Desperate to escape, the poor thing was so terrified, and my heart sank. Andrea had already set up Adam on top rope. He was secure in a harness, and he was already climbing. He just threw on his harness, he had to climb, they had to do something, and really took his time to scoop this poor little killdeer into the net, and then carefully bring him down. After they took x-rays and just let the bird rest, he kind of popped back, he started flapping. The moment I saw him fly away, I was so happy. The reason why we do what we do is to see that moment where an animal is released and goes back home to the wild.
That's beautiful. Now, the bird had opened wounds on its wings from repeatedly throwing itself at the window, but no fractures. It was released close to where it was found. You know, my friends have bird decals stickered to their windows as a way to help, you know, our feathered friends not hit their windows and get hurt. So I think that's a pretty good idea. And that's the National for July 27th. Have a good night.